Hi, my name is Grant Helm. I'm a student in mechanical engineering at Virginia Tech, and I've been working with my classmates Alex, Mintu, and Noah to present to you guys the stove stopper. My goal in this presentation is to give you guys a good idea of what the stove stopper is, what it does, some of its technical specifications, as well as the process by which we arrived at those technical specifications, and its economic viability, some of the reasons why it would be a profitable venture. I'll walk you guys through the customer needs, the product specifications, and an economic analysis of our project. To begin, a couple of our team members remembered times when we had turned the stove on and forgotten to turn it off. While you guys might not be as forgetful as our team, we recognize that there's an inherent risk to using a stovetop and forgetting to turn it off. Our goal for this project is to mitigate that risk and to create a device that automatically shuts off the stove after a given period of time as an extra safety measure and prevent fires or other dangers associated with this. Our mission statement jumps off of this desire. We want to create a safety device that prevents fires by turning off the stove. That's our product description. The benefits to this is extra peace of mind, added safety for those that you love that are in the house and yourself if you live alone, and added assistance if you're in a rushed or busy lifestyle. Our business goals is to undercut the costs of other companies attempting to create the same product. Our product is not the same, and ideally it will function better and will fit on more stoves, but we also believe that we can create something that is cheaper than the competitors. Our primary market is college students, but we decided further that the elderly and those who run a common household may also benefit from this greatly. We assume that we'll use a swappable battery pack so that it doesn't have to be powered off of the stove. And we also assume that this device will be able to be installed without a professional and without professional supervision, so that the customer can also install it on their stove. To further develop the details for our device, we decided to create a use case, an ideal scenario where the customer would be able to use the product. Firstly, our first use case, the ideal one, would be that it's an extra safety measure and isn't actually used to turn off the stove. So the customer turns on the stove, cooks whatever they're cooking, and then remembers to turn off the stove, and it's just a precautionary device. The second is the customer turns on the stove, forgets to turn it off. Our device gives a warning, a beep or flashing light, and then it reminds the customer to turn off the stove. The third is the customer leaves it on, maybe leaves the house or leaves the room, and the device is required to flip this knob back over and prevent fires or anything like that. And so that's our use case. To further develop the needs that customers have for this project, we decided to interview different people to determine what things are most important to have as featured on the stove stopper. One customer mentioned that the stove knobs aren't all standard and it has to be able to function on every stove. Another customer mentioned that instead of having a timer, you could connect it to a smart home or a mobile device or something where it has an external timer and could alert the user via a speaker or some kind of smart home, Alexa type thing. Another customer mentioned that you would be helpful to adjust how long it takes after you set the device for it to turn back off again. So say you're trying to cook something for a long period of time, you wouldn't want it to switch off prematurely. Maybe a beeping notification would be helpful in order to remind you to turn off the stove so you wouldn't have to be fully reliant on the stove stopper turning it off. One suggested a flashing light for those who are hard of hearing. I think this is a fantastic idea to have two types of cues in order to turn off the device, an auditory one and a visual one. One was concerned that it would be too large, that it would get in the way. One was concerned that it would have poor aesthetics and wouldn't want to use it because it is an abomination on the front of your stove. One was concerned that with all the food and grease everywhere that it would get too dirty. And so our goal is then to make something that is dark and doesn't collect a bunch of grime and dirt and is easily cleaned. At this point, I've discussed both our product goals and some of the customer needs. And from this, we have developed some features that we're going to put on the stove stopper. One, it has to be able to fit like any type of stove. Two, it has to be able to adjust the time duration before it beeps or before it turns off. And three, it has to have a visual cue and not just auditory. And here are the target specifications that we have gathered from these desired specs. One, it doesn't block the rest of the stove. It doesn't intrude into the space required to cook or turn on other knobs. It minimizes physical characteristics like size and weight and mass and volume. Sorry, let me switch that back. And then it's also heat resistant. Of course, when you're cooking and you're using flame or heat, you don't want it to melt. And so our goal is to create it using materials that can resist heat. And here's the economic model of our project. We decided to use a model where each device is sold at $10, and for an example, if we sold 12,000 units per year, 1,200 units per year, it would result in $12,000 of profit. Sorry, that's incorrect. But our break-even point is reached after 1,000 sales. Here's the relationship between total revenue, the blue line, and our total cost, this red line. As our cost goes up, revenue increases significantly. And this gap between them is our profit. If we sell over 1,000 units, then we generate a profit. And at 1,200, our profit will be $12,000 a year. I'm convinced that because of these specifications and that economic analysis, that the stove stopper meets all the customer's desires and is also low cost and is a device that we can manufacture and sell effectively for a profit and will compete with the rest of the industry. And here are some of the citations and the sources we used in the making of this presentation. Thank you guys for your time. I hope this was informational.